Adam, what huge lesson must AEW learn from 2025?
Well, I thought about coming on here and, quoting Britt Baker and saying nobody cares, because I think the lack of investment in certain storylines is an issue for AEW, and that's why we've seen, the dwindling viewing figures. I know they get 500,000 viewers on whatever, HBO Max or whatever. They've got a girlfriend. She just doesn't go to this school. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is, as I always like to, my best friend, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. The thing you need to realize in 2026 is he is a precious commodity who needs to be utilized better. I'm not saying, although I'd quite like it, he needs to be world champion next year. What I'm saying is, he is crucially important and very in very high demand with regards to the fact that the reason we're not seeing him right now is not because, he doesn't want to be there or whatever. He's got other commitments. He's a movie star as well. He does TV shows, all these other things. So the moment that you have him back, know what you want to do with him and utilize him. Like, the briefcase nonsense isn't making the best use of MJF. Setting Mark Briscoe on fire isn't making the best use of Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
He wasn't even successful.
He didn't even do it, exactly. Look, he is a megastar. He's one of the biggest guys in wrestling, in my opinion. And I think, he is crucial to seeing things not turn around, because I think they've had a far better year than last year, for example. But the uptick that you can see with AEW, I think, centers around having crucial characters. And when you haven't got people like Will Ospreay or Swerve Strickland, the multitude of injuries that they've got, you need those stars that you can utilize doing their best stuff. And he's had one of the best matches of the year, and it wasn't in AEW. So utilize him better. He is crucial. I love MJF.
I'm not entirely sure it's a lesson that AEW must learn from me, but with a gun to my head or just making a video, because obviously there is no firearm to my skull right now, I, for one, and listen, I do pay for pay-per-views. People think that I don't. No, I take my money and put it down. But I, for one, could deal with a shorter pay-per-view length running time. For two reasons. Firstly, I don't define worth by how long something goes. I used to get this chat when I used to work in video games all the time. If I spend, more now, but if I spend $50 on a video game and it's 10 hours, is it worth more or less than I spend $50 on an RPG, which could be 100 hours? As long as I enjoy those 10 hours, well, it's going to be dependent on the individual, but then I can sort of work out afterwards, do I think that was a worthy investment? And if I enjoy myself for 10 hours, then yes. Now, I'm not saying that I don't enjoy myself for the 5 hours or so an AEW pay-per-view would go, but I do find myself enjoying some matches less just because that's always going to happen. You get fatigued. Maybe the match beforehand is so good, so you dump a bunch of adrenaline and then you just need a few minutes to calm down. But also, I think you could take a lot of these matches and put it on Dynamite. And because they are such big matches, they're pay-per-view worthy. It's going to raise up your television as well. This would have been different back in the day, but everybody is putting on amazing TV matches all the time. It's not like you're actually giving anything away, because you're probably going to go out and find two people that come together to make people go, oh wow, that's absolutely amazing. Like, I just watched Bandito versus Okada when I'm filming these videos for the Unified title. That could have been a pay-per-view match, should you have built them up in the right way. But that's just, to me, I'm a less is more guy. So if all of a sudden I got a 3.5 hour pay-per-view and we took sort of 2 or 3 matches out of it, I don't think that I'd be like, I can't believe I spent $50 on that, because I still got those amazing matches that I saw. And 9 times out of 10, an AEW main event is so good, it gets your endorphins going anyway. But that's just my personal preference. But of course, if you are out there and you're scrimping and you're saving and you drop $50 on a pay-per-view, maybe you aren't going to watch it like me. Like, I literally get up and I make sure I get the whole thing in because I'm blessed to do this job. But if you're going to watch a little bit on a Sunday, a little bit on Monday, because you don't care about spoilers that may be floating around the internet, you are going to have a more enjoyable experience. But I'm not saying it ties into my job either. I think I'd feel this way regardless. I'm just less is more. Same with WWE, same with AEW. I wasn't a massive fan of the weekend of WrestleMania when it first got brought in, but I still think it helped condense it. Worst thing I've ever said, but I've told that story before. WrestleMania 35, I was lucky enough to go. And after like hour 7, I was like, I'm a bit bored now. I was at WrestleMania and I was bored. But that's why I always keep it in my head. I think wrestling is better when it's quality over quantity. And I certainly wouldn't feel shortchanged, even if it was like 6 matches. If there's 6 amazing matches, and it really sets me up for the day and I get excited about talking about social media and doing my videos, then I still think it's worthwhile. Just one man's opinion.
The commentary team is about 3 years past its sell-by date and needs a complete rethink. This is my take on the matter. I like all of them individually. I like every AEW commentator one by one, right? I think Excalibur did a tremendous job in the early years, and he was really good at filling dead air, in particular running through his match cards in about 10 seconds at the end of the shows. I think that Jim Ross, when they still bring him in, like their sparse usage of him, really does help add a bit of gravitas, and is good as well because Jim is getting old and he maybe doesn't have the energy that he used to have to get through a full show. So I think they use Jim well. Taz is the most charming man alive to me. I love Jones, all of that nonsense. I'm a big Taz guy. And Tony Schiavone, if you don't like Tony Schiavone, you're probably dead, is the problem. But the thing is, right, this announce team has really depreciated over the years to the point where it makes the shows quite hard to listen to above everything else. I think that Excalibur over the years has been exposed as perhaps not the best at regulating emotion. When there's a really exciting moment on the show, he calls it in much the same way as like a trade of holds, like a headlock. That's a problem. I think that Taz is no longer as locked in as he was. I think that where previously he was really engaging and funny and he had things like his technique breakdowns and stuff like that, these days he is coming a bit off like he did in his later WWE commentary days or in his time in TNA. Taz is awesome when he's locked in. When he's not locked in, he's not the most best for the show. And Tony Schiavone, I think, has the appeal of the beloved wrestling uncle who has fallen back in love with the sport that he fell out of love with when WCW died, has kind of ran its course a little bit. I think that it needs a complete reshuffle, and I think that they do have the tools to do it. Number one, Bryan Danielson in the analyst role. Keep him there. He's good already. He will only get better. He's the best on that team at breaking down the intricacies of a wrestling match, explaining what's going on so that you can fully understand and fully make the most, and you can fully immerse in the situation. Number two, take Excalibur, move him from the play-by-play role, pop him in the second man in the booth. So we've got Danielson's number 3 and Excalibur here number 2. It will let him do less. It will mean that he doesn't need to speak every single second of the broadcast. And it also puts less of a burden on him to add the emotion, to add the highs and lows, to regulate his announcing, to go through the gears like Jim Ross used to do so well, when he'd scream his head off at the big moments but take it right down for the somber moments. It would much take that burden off of his shoulders. And then number 1, you find the best color commentary, play-by-play person for the business, and you put them in the number 1 spot. For me, that's Ian Riccaboni.
Yes.
I know that Ian Riccaboni has a shoot job, and they've tried to get him to do more, and he said no in the past. He likes his family life. He likes being on the road once every fortnight or whatever. But come on, he's the best. He's the best. Double his salary, man. Like, do what it takes. I think that he does a great job of going through the emotions, and he also does a great job of holding the show together and keeping it running and stuff like that as well. Wrestling's not just about explaining what's going on, which is what Bryan Danielson can do really well. I still watch Japanese wrestling with Japanese commentary. I don't touch the English commentary, even though I don't have a clue what the Japanese commentators are saying. They're the way they come up and they're screaming their heads off for the big moments and they're really quiet. The regulation of emotion is far more important. I can understand the story. I'm an adult. I can break these things down for myself. The emotional side of it is super important. AEW is seriously letting itself down at the moment with this. And I know these commentators are sacred horses, sacred cows, sacred unicorns. They're people love them. But what it's time to do is take those horses and don't put them out to pasture. Maybe put them in a different stable for a while. Feed them different hay. New field. Get a Shetland pony in, man. Why not? Let's go. Fix it.
It's time to stop indulging Jon Moxley in 2026. And I say that understanding that that's difficult for Tony Khan and maybe AEW hardcores to want to accept as well. Like, there are times at which, like, Jon Moxley's omnipresence in AEW were a necessity, times plural. Like, I can think of 2, like the 2020 world title reign in the pandemic, 2022, either side of, like, CM Punk's return in the summer and Brawl Out and all that sort of stuff. There were times when Jon Moxley was so vital to AEW, not just because he objectively drew, but also he stood as this, like, one safe pair of hands to hold your world title, to kind of, like, contribute to any program and make it better. I don't think that's the case anymore in 2025. And I say that, again, complex as it is, in spite of him being like largely responsible for AEW's best moment, the crowning of Hangman Page at All in Texas. He gets to be everything and anything, and that can sometimes become worse than the sum of its parts. Like, yes, it's cool sometimes when Jon Moxley is the hardest guy in the room. Yes, it's cool sometimes when he's the most dangerous and scariest, and even sometimes the funniest as a heel. But it's not so great when he's trademark Michael Sidgwick, a cat burglar. It's not so great when he's all of those things over the course of one match.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of like at the start of the match he's supposed to be the hardest guy, and then halfway through he becomes the funny guy. And yes, some of it's in service of him being a heel, so the heel can kind of make choices where he's like, oh, he was lying to you all along, he is a coward or whatever, and I understand that. But I am not as high on the Death Riders in spite of some of the high points. I'm not sure that this group ultimately has necessarily sort of served its purpose beyond that one great moment. I think the idea was too big and too confused from the very beginning about like making AEW better, because then you're kind of tacitly saying it's crap, and then you're undermining the things that are good. I think there are points where they've been the most terrifying heel stable, and then in the next segment the babyfaces don't even care. I think at times when the babyfaces are supposed to rally round and stop the Death Riders, it makes them look like bigger geeks. So there's just a lot of times for me where the Death Riders doesn't work, and so much of that is clearly Jon Moxley's passion project. It's been 6 years in AEW, and it's tricky with wrestling because wrestlers earn that amount of stroke, they earn that amount of say. Jon Moxley was once like a business driver. There were objective metrics to suggest that Jon Moxley was the guy to go with. And AEW does well on pay-per-view, or comparatively well considering it's a monthly product. But the buildings aren't getting any fuller. Like, often they're really quiet. The ratings, in spite of the millions that watch on streaming, of course, like aren't exactly like sort of record highs or anything like that. There are less objective metrics than ever to kind of justify Jon Moxley's omnipresence. I am not saying just lift him off television, never to return, although he's still never taken that fishing trip. But like, it could be time to just see if you can find a way for Jon Moxley to fit somewhere in one polite mid-card spot just for a bit, just to see. Stone Cold Steve Austin kind of infamously said that like you can't move a character like Steve Austin down the card, and then proceeded to kind of like leave the company twice and make that not really a conversation. I do wonder sometimes if the only way that Jon Moxley ever leaves the main event of AEW is if he leaves AEW full stop. I almost can't picture a main event scene without Jon Moxley sort of dominating it, but I would really like to, and 2025 was the year that confirmed that for me.
Right, a big lesson that AEW has to learn, like going into next year, going to 2026, learn from 2025, is not every match needs to feel like an epic on a pay-per-view, okay? It just does not. Like, I love the quality of wrestling that we get. We're spoiled as wrestling fans right now in 2025. I've lived through the dark ages of some of the absolute drivel, terrible stuff that we were given in WWE, like in the end of the 2010s and that kind of stuff. It was bland, it was boring, whatever it is. We don't have that problem now, like with the incredible talent that you see in the likes of AEW and even WWE, but there's a danger right now that a lot of the talent, because they're given like artistic license and given the freedom to be creative, there's a lot of those talents on the AEW roster that are aiming for these 5-star epics every single time they get in the ring. And that's fine, that's great to be ambitious, but not every match needs to be that or close to that on a 10-match card, however big these AEW events are. Because what happens if every single match starts to feel similar in style, this back and forth showdown epic? Well, none of them feel special, none of them feel big or like an epic. That is the idea. For me, call me old-fashioned, but I like my epics to be saying for the main event or co-main event, whatever it is, like towards the end of the show, because that makes them feel special, like the big attraction, the thing that you've paid your money to see, the big stars doing their thing in that show towards the end, when you feel like they're the big angles, they're the big storylines that have earned that time, or at least they should have earned that time in the lead up to it. Whereas if every single one on the card, every single match on the card feels like a 20-minute, even over 15 minutes like worth of wrestling like match that is back and forth and near falls and drama, they all start feeling samey. None of them feel special, and you just get tired, you just get drained really quickly, having to come up and down, these big roller coaster matches all the time. A bit of variety spices up these events. This is why Wrestle Dream is the most recent AEW pay-per-view at time of recording. That's why I really enjoyed the start of Wrestle Dream, because it started with a literal bang. You had all the fireworks going off. We were mid-match, and it felt like, even though, because I didn't tune in for the pre-show at this point, I just watched like from the start of the show. It felt like you were getting this little sprint squash match at the start. Not a squash, but you know what I mean, like a little sprint match where you're like, whoa, energy, blah, 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 and it was just like over before you knew it, and you're like, I want wrestling. Oh my god, this is so good. And it was like a shot of adrenaline into your soul, and it wasn't this 20-minute epic like where you're like, okay, I'm gonna get into it and everything else is really good. It was just a shot of electricity, and that's what I think we need a bit more of, a bit more variety, a few of those sprinkled in to a pay-per-view card, or just different styles of matches, shorter matches, longer matches, like, and just really vary it a little bit. Some of these matches that were on Wrestle Dream in particular, like you had the Kyle Fletcher Mark Briscoe match, which was a wonderful match, like, of course, brilliant work in there. But it was long. It could have had 10 minutes, 15 minutes taken off it and still been just as good, and probably more memorable because it would have been one of the shorter matches on the card and felt more like a wow, sprint, high-octane, insane showdown rather than this long epic where it starts to feel like it's just an exercise in showing you how good the cardio is of these talented wrestlers, which we know anyway. We know they're all brilliant athletes, and we salute them and celebrate them for that. For me, though, I just want to reiterate that I want those big closing matches on a show to be the epics, and I want a bit more variety, I think, throughout the rest of the card coming into 2026, because there's a lot of great pay-per-views that AEW have had this year that have had some great matches on them that I have forgotten because they've got lost in the shuffle, because they've all felt like epics. I could not tell you like half the card that happened at Double or Nothing this year, for example, off the top of my head, because a lot of those matches felt samey. There were a lot of big long matches, and they are fine in their place when you pick your moments, but not every single match on every single card. For me, it's getting a bit tiring, and I think it's just a lesson that they're on the cusp of learning, because they did the great opener to Wrestle Dream. I just want a bit more of that sprinkled in and across my pay-per-view rather than just at the start, like every now and then. It needs to be every card. Keep me excited, keep me engaged by mixing things up a little.
Tony Khan, you either die a hero or you live long enough to prove the grifters right. Because at this point, in terms of his approach, in terms of what he books on his TV product, it is asinine, bad faith, ignorant to say he doesn't tell stories. Inherently, every wrestling match is a story, right? But my God, this year more than most, with this Where the Best Wrestle campaign, which is really he's gone full bore into the idea, and it's always been around in AEW. It's a selling point of AEW, is to put great matches on TV. But that initiative was launched when WWE would just gleefully put out middling efforts with terrible finishes, like to deprive the audience of good matches or whatever. That selling point no longer exists. I would say the idea of skill in pro wrestling generally pisses me off. This idea of everyone trying to be the best and the best wrestler and have the best matches, like, it's really undermined like the emotional component of pro wrestling. And Tony Khan at this point, again, I'm not saying the guy doesn't tell stories. If you look at how they all deftly dovetailed into that last 15 minutes of the All in Texas main event, I mean, it was quite incredible. But after All in Texas especially, this has really brought into focus to me. I've tried to coin it on the podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you get podcasts from, you can listen to those. I would describe it as critical acclaim doping, where the amount of matches that seem to exist for the quality has just it's increased to like an absurd volume, right? Like these all-star 8-man tags. Mm-hmm. If you remembered them, well done. I really can't at this point, and I watch it and review it every single week. You can't trace the winners and losers anymore. Increasingly, they're becoming immaterial, and the emphasis is on great action, great action, great action, great action, great action. The money matches, and those like Collision, like the whole sickos thing on Collision. It's like, I don't care who wins or loses anymore. And considering this was the Wins and Losses Matter company in 2019, that is almost disastrous. What's happening is that he's so like match happy and match graphic happy. First of all, it's lazy. It's not particularly inspiring. It feels like a cheap way of getting you to watch, when at this point, is the quality of a pro wrestling match, is it not boring to you? Have we not already peaked in terms of the Danielson AEW run, the peak of New Japan? It's like chasing a nostalgia. Like, in many ways, AEW in 2025 feels like the WWF of 1995, where everything it's trying to do feels a little bit uninspiring and passe, and a diminished return of things we were getting like 2, 3, 4 years ago. And what the worst criminal thing is, and this is the lesson they must learn, is that the emphasis on this is where the best wrestling has come at the detriment of actual promotion, anticipation, live in-ring promos. I need to see way more talking on these Dynamite shows in particular, especially now that the monthly pay-per-view calendar is in place and has been for ages. Like, you've got monthly pay-per-views now. The idea is even more, even if you don't consider the malaise and the fatigue of the great match, like, there is less of a need to do them on Dynamite now that you're not running quarterly pay-per-views. The idea was, oh yeah, you're going to get the big emotional matches in about 2 or 3 months, but you're going to get some great matches on Dynamite in the interim. What's the point anymore? There is no point now that it's monthly, and it's match after match after match after match after match. Like, I want to anticipate these matches. I want these matches to be promoted. Mark Briscoe, one of the best promos of his generation, did not, on the Dynamite before Wrestle Dream, cut a babyface promo on Kyle Fletcher that made me think, well, I can't not give him the title. Like, I knew kind of the result. I kind of expected Fletcher to win, realistically. But, like, the idea should have been, oh, Mark Briscoe's just cut that promo. How can you not strap him up when he's just cut the promo of his life in there? What they're doing with Eddie Kingston is a fucking disgrace, quite frankly.
Yeah.
His gimmick, his persona now, is someone who is affronted when the production team knocks on the locker room door and asks him to promote a match on Collision. He does this thing where the best promo of the century, arguably, Eddie Kingston. You might not even need that qualifier, by the way. You could go all time with Eddie Kingston. The persona he is currently working is a guy who the production team knocks on his door and goes, hi Eddie, you've got to promote your match. He comes out in a mood, like really low energy. This again. Says the best promo guy ever. This again. All right, okay, well, yeah. What's the match? Yeah. When is it again? I can't be bothered to remember. Yeah, I'll see you then. I really want to. I was doing a warm up, and you're going to interrupt me to do a promo. What are we doing? This guy on the flagship TV show should be involved in an absolutely massively important match almost every single month and sell you and talk you into it. One of the best moments in AEW history was the CM Punk Eddie Kingston Rampage confrontation. They haven't sniffed that in 2025, and that is a major issue. But it's fine. You're going to get Sicko A versus Sicko B and Sicko X versus Sicko Y on Collision. And if you sat down, right, January to October, or like, yeah, it's a month, right? Yeah. I'm like, Eddie Kingston, who cares? Who cares? October, Saturday, who cares? I want to talk. I'm the best talker in the world, though. Like, it mapped out everything that's happened on Collision from January to October this year, and I watch it, and I cover it, right? Not the podcast anymore, but I do watch it. I'll be like, oh yeah, there's probably a great match in January, probably a great match in the second match of January, probably a really great one in the third. I think in February there's probably another match with two cult underground heroes that I can't remember the finish of, or the result of, or the body of, really. I'm sick of it. Talk me into the goddamn buildings and make me care.